so this is the conducting techniques for organists?
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, so for me, the tagline of this talk is basically to go over efficient and productive rehearsal techniques, strategies. And I designed this talk. Good morning.
Good morning.
My goal is to equip organists who often find themselves leading choirs with practical conducting techniques and smart rehearsal strategies to maximize efficiency and elevate musical outcomes. I'm extremely lucky in that I work with 2 full-time musicians, but oftentimes church musicians only have 1 person. And so we have to be a jack of all trades, and we have to be a master of all of them, right? And sometimes we also have to conduct from the piano, sometimes we also have to conduct from the organ. If we conduct from the organ at Mass or at a service, we didn't get to practice in that space. We practice in another room at a piano. Sometimes we do a cappella works, sometimes we do accompanied works. So we have to be conductors, regardless of whether we actually conduct a cappella ourselves or we're actually playing. So the organist or pianist has to be a conductor, and the goal of that is to bridge 2 worlds. Organists inherently possess a deep understanding of harmony, right, counterpoint, and form. The musical foundation is invaluable for conducting, right? You can't conduct something if you don't understand the music that you're doing. Our goal is to translate that musical knowledge into clear, effective physical gestures that inspire and guide the choir. So what are key challenges for organists and conductors? Divided attention, focus, right? We are in a world of increasing distractions, and people now carry the worst distractions, the distraction of them all, in their own pocket all the time. Same here, you know. And what's happening now also is young people who join choirs, young professional singers actually, the ones that kind of feel that this is beneath them, you know, they sang opera, you know. So the moment that they stop singing and the conductor starts talking, they bring the phone out of their pocket and they start surfing. And it's something that we have to call them on and say, now is not the time. But my point being that people are used to no longer focusing on one thing at a time. People are used to, you know, constantly shifting focus. So that's why also warm-ups are important, because warm-ups are meant to start bringing focus into the activity that we're going to do, right? Warm-ups are not just to warm up the voice, but also to shed the stress of the day and, you know, start a new activity that deserves full focus from everyone. All right, so divided attention is one of the key challenges. Then there's also a lack of formal training. A lot of times we direct choirs of people who want to sing, who have a deep faith, who have a lot of love for music, and who feel that they must sing. And those are usually your most reliable singers, but they have very limited vocal training. And so we as organists need to compensate for that with our conducting. And unfortunately, a lot of people who get an organ degree don't get a lot of conducting teaching. So hopefully today you will leave this session having some new, clearer strategies on how to move forward. And then also there's time constraints. Church choirs often have limited rehearsal time. At the cathedral in New York, we actually only have 2 hours a week. People are super busy in New York. And you know, we just ask for them for 2 hours a week, 6 to 8 p.m. Don't be late, be on time. It's just 2 hours out of your week. But this is not just in New York, everybody's busy everywhere. So that the time constraint is a very big challenge. So it's very important for organists or pianists to have very clear conducting techniques to maximize that precious time that we spend together with the choir. And so we have to really master the basic patterns, and they have to be extremely clear. So there is, of course, one of the first concepts we learn in conducting class is that prep beat, that preparatory beat. It's essential so that you can indicate to a singer when they must come in. So the prep beat is basically that crucial upbeat that sets the tempo, the character, and informs the choir when to sing. So we should think of it as a clear inhale for both you and the choir. And in fact, when in rehearsal, you don't have to play everything, and you can use your hands to conduct the choir. You should use that prep beat, perhaps with just one hand, as an opportunity to show them how to breathe. So with your mouth, you open your mouth, right? So you feel that prep beat. And then you have a clear ictus. So the ictus, right, is the precise point in space where the beat lands. So it needs to be clear and consistent. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? So 4, 1. But with singers, it's good to open the hand. So it's 1, right? And when you do this, they will subliminally know that it's time to open the mouth and inhale, right? So the ictus, though, needs to be very clear. You need to have that. Right, because if you do this, it's not clear where it is. Where is the ictus, right? So you have your arm accelerating. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that as I speed up, actually, my motion gets smaller and smaller, but my ictus remains very clear. And also I get a little bouncier, so that when singers are looking at their music very close, they can still see in their peripheral vision the ictus, right? So the ictus is extremely important. And the rebound from the ictus, right? The taller the rebound, the louder people are going to sing, right? It implies a crescendo or a very generous sound, right? So from the ictus you rebound. That's the natural upward motion after the ictus, which prepares for the next beat. So if it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? The rebound shows also the loudness, indicates the loudness that you want. If you want something very quiet, it's 1, 2, 1, 2. So the rebound is this steady movement. You see that the size of the rebound also indicates dynamic, right? So common patterns, as we know, though, the 2-2 is a very common one. So if you conduct in 2, it's down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And basically, it's good to have your shoulder back, your arm straight out, right? Not like this, but straight out. It reaching to a people creates a subliminal connection to them, right? So like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, right? That way it's always very clear. You have that ictus at every beat. The 3 pattern, right, is down and right and up and down and right and up and down and right and up and down and right and up. And there's no substitute for just like while you're at home doing laundry, whatever. You can just randomly practice a beat. What's also super useful is to practice in front of a mirror. Conduct to yourself in front of a mirror. Check the posture, right? Is your arm straight out? 1 and 2 and 3. A rule of thumb is, put your hand between your face and the face of the people you're conducting, right? I mean, don't block their face like that, but just so that they can easily see it with your face in the same field, right? It may seem like it's going to be tiring, but eventually you get used to it. It becomes second nature. The 4 pattern, right? It's down and left and right and up, down and left and right and up, down and left and right and up, right? So if you conduct with the mirror, you might also conduct with the metronome. Practice with the metronome. That way you know that your beat, your ictus is extremely steady. A lot of people might depend on your conducting pattern. An organist, a pianist, a choir, a brass flute player, you name it. So making sure that you're extremely steady, unless obviously you have a ritornello or an accelerando, then obviously you can start accelerating or getting slower. But you just want to make sure that when you're practicing, practice very steady, and that your rebound doesn't slow you down, right? So you make sure that you keep that ictus. Right? If you have a huge rebound because the music is loud, right? Then make sure that the rebound doesn't slow you down. All right, the left hand usage. The left hand in conducting is actually not there to mirror the right hand, right? That is really not useful. A lot of people do that, and it's okay. Like when you change tempos, for example, or there's a new meter happening, right? You went from 2-2 to 2-4 to 3-4, right? Then you might, for a couple of measures, double or mirror, as they say, right? The pattern with the left hand, just so that visually it stands out. But after that, you don't need to keep doing it. The mirroring effect adds nothing. The purpose really of the left hand in conducting is to clearly communicate changes in loudness or softness. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? The left hand is very effective, right? If you use it for dynamic indications. It's also great, the left hand for cues, to bring in a specific section or voices. So make them very clear and timely. So right now the sopranos are singing, and then the altos are going to come in. 1, right? With the left hand, you invite them to breathe and come in, right? So that's what you use the left hand for. Now, if you're playing with the left hand and you only have one hand, you go 1 and 2, you know, that abandon the pattern and go bring in the other section with the right hand, of course, right? Now, if you're playing with the left hand and you only have, you're playing with the right hand and you only have the left hand available, well, then use the left hand to the pattern and then bring in another section like that, right? You kind of have to adapt, and it's part of that multitasking that organists are actually quite good at, you know, that you have to do, but obviously that requires practice ahead of time, right? To maximize the limited time that we have with choirs. So also, the left hand is great to indicate indicate shaping, right? The shaping of phrases, indicating legato or staccato or convey emotion, right? So you can go, you can make things very exciting and dramatic with the left hand, while the right hand, is still keeping that steady pattern, right? You can go like this with the left hand, right? And people will suddenly sing very expressively, right? So the left hand can do all kinds of things. You can also cut people off with the left hand. You go and off, while the right hand is still, people sustain chord, right? With the right hand, you indicate that this is the pedal point, that whole note, and then go like this, or you go like that, right? If it's a soft ending, or you go like this, yeah, right? It's a very sturdy. So the left hand is actually a very important tool of your conducting. Now, of course, if you're playing with the left hand and only have the right hand available, then the right hand does everything. When you get to the whole note, start the whole note, and then go, or like this, or that. There's several kinds of different gestures that you can use to convey your intent. If you can, avoid the redundancy of the mirroring thing, right? It really, especially throughout the whole thing, it just doesn't add anything, right? And then people will eventually stop watching anyway, right? So it's sort of like sign language what we do with the hand, right? It just needs purpose, intent, and precision. All right, eye contact and facial expression. Yes, eye contact helps us connect with our singers, right? Looking at them makes them feel engaged and important, right? So sometimes you can't look at every single one, right, in your section. You have to look globally at the section, but it's important to look and not look above, right? The tendency is when you're focusing on the music and you want to make sure that you remember to do this is to look up at the ceiling. Looking at the ceiling disengages from people. It builds a disconnect that can make the rehearsal less effective, right? When you look at people like this, or you don't look at them, right? It's very disturbing, isn't it? Right? I'm looking that way when I'm talking to you, right? It's very disturbing. So looking at people, it goes without saying, but it is worth saying, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. And then communicate is important. Your eyes, right, express the mood and the character and the energy of the music. When you are building intensity, your eyes should look, intense, right? When something is mellow, and you can also show the mood, and it reminds subliminally the singers that, oh yeah, I get the mood, right? And it reminds them, oh, I need to be soft character right now. And then also your eyes help anticipate. So look at the singers before their entrances, right? So you know that they're going to come in on the next measure. The basses are going to come in on the next measure, and then you look at them already a measure before they come in, or half a measure before they come in, right? And that way you know, oh, it's my turn now, or it's our turn, right? So eye contact and facial expression is huge. And maybe both your hands, by the way, are playing. You look at them and you go, right? You breathe. You show them that you're breathing on that prep beat, right? So you're playing, and then, right? And they will know when to come in, especially once they've rehearsed it multiple times. Body language and stance. It's important to stand tall, balanced, and open. Or if you're sitting, to still sit up, right? When you're addressing a choir, because if you sit back, it doesn't convey energy or focus or attention or urgency or care, and whereas if you're sitting up and you look engaged, or you're standing tall, chest out, people are more likely to respond to you and be receptive to what you're saying and to your gestures. So that aspect of body language is crucial. And then breathe. It's important to breathe with your choir. So suddenly, it fosters unity subliminally, right? Especially when the choir is singing something, all four parts are singing, you're playing your heart out, and then suddenly, look like you're breathing, right? Because otherwise, untrained singers are not going to remember to breathe, or they're going to take only a tiny little breath, and then they'll have to breathe in the middle of the word Jesus. They'll go, Jesus, and so breathing with them reminds them when to breathe, and to breathe fully, especially if you open your mouth tall, right? They know to breathe, and you do a little bit of a bounce with your upper body like that. But in all things, it's good to use economy of motion. It's good to avoid extraneous movements. I've worked with conductors who are, they're having a stroke. I don't know. I can't find the ictus. And it can be problematic, but some conductors are really hard to follow. And then, for example, we have Randall Bradley here, who's incredibly easy to follow. I mean, his conducting is effective, and there's an economy of motion there that is wonderful. That way, everyone knows where one is, where that beat, that ictus is, right? He has an extremely precise ictus, which is essential because right there in the Powell Chapel, right, the stage is very wide. It's not deep, right? The musicians are very spread out. So economy of gesture and precision are everything. And yes, every gesture should have a purpose. All right. I would like to talk also now about efficient and productive rehearsal strategies, because again, one of our main challenges in our profession is the limited time we get to spend with choirs. So a lot of things happen before rehearsal. So we have to plan and prepare. We need to study the scores thoroughly before we crack them open with the choir for the first time. We need to know the music inside and out, not just our part at the piano or at the organ. We need to identify difficult passages, rhythmic, harmonic, and vocal range challenges that we can anticipate, that we can maybe say, oh, before we start singing, how about we look at page 5, sopranos, your part over here. You have that big major sixth, all the way to high A. Make sure that you open your mouth really tall so that, and you take a full breath before your entrance so that you can reach the high A and not scoop up to it, but you anticipate it, right? Shall we isolate it that way now? And then after you've done that, you can start the rehearsal or rehearsing that piece. And already, because you've already anticipated that, because you pre-anticipated that, you just save yourself a lot of precious time, and that will work against that major challenge of time limitation. Mark potential trouble spots in your score. Maybe circle an area that you know is going to pose a challenge because new accidentals are coming in, either chromatics or tritone or another difficult interval is going to happen, or something there's a modulation and you know it's going to be a major challenge. So identify that as a reminder that, this is probably going to need to be troubleshot, and maybe you're going to have to isolate parts and maybe do sections, one section at a time, and then put it together. Determine also the musical goals for each piece. At this rehearsal, do you want to make the anthem performance ready? Or is it just to get them acquainted and then help them identify where they, on their own time, are going to need to reinforce a part or another? And then plan your rehearsal agenda. Prioritize what absolutely must be accomplished at the rehearsal. Because basically we have several Sundays coming up, and you have to perhaps rehearse harder music first, but you also have to make sure that the music for this coming Sunday is going to be rehearsed appropriately. So plan this all out. If you have 2 hours, plan out probably the harder work in the first hour and the simpler work, the simpler anthems in the second hour. Prioritize exactly what must be accomplished at rehearsal. I think sequencing is important. Figure out the logical order of pieces and sections. Don't start with a big screamer right away, right? Especially when people don't know how to warm up on their own, and they don't warm up on their own, and the warm up at the rehearsal is the only warm up, vocal warm up they do. Don't start with a screamer, start with maybe a softer piece, just to get them going and keep the warm up going. Maybe you might want to finish the first half of the rehearsal with a screamer or something very loud, and then take a break where they relax their voices, and then proceed to the second half of the rehearsal. Plan a rough time estimate for each piece. In other words, what I do in rehearsals, I keep my phone handy, and I have my sheet to the left where I have my agenda for the rehearsal, and I know that I can only spend 15 minutes on this one piece. Seeing what the progress of the clock reminds me, okay, I need to get this done, and it motivates me to keep moving forward, not waste time on things that don't need to be looked at too much. Warm-ups, yes, I think it's good to tailor the warm-ups for the repertoire you're going to do. For example, if you have a piece with a lot of, if you're going to do a spiritual, right, that has a lot of pesantes in the scores, and where I'm going to go to heaven, I'm going to go to heaven. You want people to already practice breathing, and then you make them speak, I'm going to go to heaven, I'm going to go to heaven. That way they already start warming up with material that is going to be reviewed in rehearsal. If you're going to have big octaves and things like that, start practicing octaves. Make them already anticipate some of the materials that they're about to sing. It also keeps things fresh, but it also ties everything together, right? And then it's important to think before rehearsal of the materials that you need, like pencils, erasers, extra copies, water bottles if you don't have a water fountain, things like that, right? So organize all that, gather all those materials. And then during rehearsal, because again, we always run out of time. It's important to have a plan to maximize that rehearsal. So start and end on time. Even if people are used to just walking in late, don't wait for them. because it sets the precedent that you will wait for them, right? And unfortunately, it eats into your agenda for the rehearsal. It lets people think, well, it's not important to be on time. Punctuality is not important, and yet punctuality is crucial in life. It's an important life skill. So yes, it's about respecting everyone's schedule. All right, then maybe spend 5 to 7 minutes on effective warm-ups. Vocalizing is always a good way to start getting the voice moving. You might tailor vocalizing to, yes, specific challenges in the repertoire that's coming up. I think it's important to also focus on breath and resonance. Finding the resonance and in the warm-ups, focusing on intonation. I love to start every warm-up, by the way, with everybody sing blue. Deep breath and. And make people aware of listening to each other, right? And you'll be shocked at how doing something like that. It's very, by the way, it's very meditative. It's very Zen. It's very Hinduism. It really does amazing things to the brain. It quiets brain waves down. It helps with focus. It brings, it chases distractions away. That the power of the is really amazing, and it really sets the tone for the work you're about to do, the seriousness of what you're doing, and it helps people focus. But it also helps intonation. All right, and then it's good when you rehearse a piece to identify and isolate. Don't drill the entire piece if only one section is problematic, right? So if you identify a problematic section, maybe first identify the exact problem if you can. Be as focused as you can. It's about saving time, about addressing the real issues. Don't say, let's start one more time with feeling. Feeling is not going to address the issue. So do spot checks on the difficult rhythms and the harmonies, and then go back to maybe the previous section and then go through that problematic section. And I think people will feel, okay, yes, we solved something, we're being set up for success. And it's okay to work in smaller units, only do specific phrases, or just even specific measures. And then if there's a note in that one measure that is problematic, go to the one chord and have everyone freeze on that chord until they realize, oh yeah, I'm a little flat, oh, I'm a little sharp, and then, then they fix that. Then do it again and freeze on that chord again, making sure that they zero in on that chord. And then go back to the beginning of that phrase or the beginning of that section, and then keep going. And you'll see that problem is solved. A few problem-solving strategies. It can be very helpful to sing parts separately, isolate the soprano, the alto, or the tenor, or the bass, right? Especially if you have a listen, don't sing along, don't hum along, really just listen. If you say listen, it activates the left brain, and that's the brain that learns, the brain that analyzes, the brain that listens, the brain that remembers. So invite people to listen as you isolate their part, then have them sing along with it. And then as they sing along with it, maybe play another part, the tenor part or the bass part, all that, so that they get used to hearing their part and singing their part in context with another part of another section of the choir. Slow practice. I know, it's never fun, right? Learning repertoire, learning anthems, learning hymns. Slowly, it's no fun. We all want to get to the finished product right away. I want it all and I want it now, right? Isn't that how the song goes? But slow practice is your friend, and you can gradually increase tempo. And if you have 4 Sundays before that anthem is going to be sung, enjoy doing it slowly, and then remember that at the next rehearsal you do it closer to the full tempo, and at least maybe by the 3rd rehearsal be at tempo, so that people really become comfortable with it. And then that 4th Sunday, it will be a breeze. it's good to practice drills using rhythmic drills such as counting to help people feel the beat as they sing, right? Because sometimes a lot of untrained musicians don't know how to count, and they don't count while they sing. But if you make them clap, or if you have other sections clap while, say, the altos are singing, the other sections clap the beat, right? It helps the sopranos internalize that beat and realize what the actual rhythm is. Counting out loud is also very helpful. Count singing is very important. It's one of my main tools as I learn even organ music. For example, in that hymn, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Right, I'm using T instead of 3 because 3 is a very long number to speak, right? So 1, 2, T, 4, 1, 2, T. It makes people internalize subliminally the rhythmic geography of a piece, right? You can do that also with anthems, 3, T, 1, 2, T, and 1, 2, T, 1, 2, T, 1, 2, T, 1, 2, T, and 1, 2, right? Subdividing as well. It really makes the rhythm of a piece or a hymn very solid in your singers. So count singing is a great tool. Also, sometimes using nonsense syllables can be fun, and there are some directors who love using that technique, and I personally don't use it, but it can be very effective. And then, if you are comfortable, it's important for you to demonstrate the correct pitch and rhythm. I think because I was a voice soprano growing up, I'm able to sing in falsetto, and I can then sing with the basses or the tenors or the altos and the sopranos in their range, so that it immediately tells them, okay, that can be done, right? But if you can't sing in falsetto, for the men, it's okay. Sing in your octave and demonstrate. That, I think, is also a very effective problem-solving strategy. And then once you've fixed one thing, just move on. Avoid dwelling endlessly on things that you've already solved. Mark it and revisit later if needed to reinforce a difficult passage. But the moment you fixed it, we all put together that together, or the, right? And one easy gesture, if you have one hand free, is when you do the word light, you go. Subliminally, people just do it exactly in time, and they do it together. If someone does it late because they're just sort of, on their own cloud, just say, you need to focus on that, right? When I go, right? Duh. Right? That really works really well. Do it in either hand. And if both hands are busy, just go, they see it and they react and they respond and they're right with you. Visually, what they see is the most effective. If they just have a T in their score and they're not watching, they're going to do T wherever. So just remind people to maybe draw a pair of eyeglasses in their score so that it visually reminds them to watch, right? Okay, and then limit talking and maximize singing, right? It's good to not go into a lecture and just make people sing most of the time, right? Breaks are great, short little breaks. Well-timed breaks can refresh focus, right? So sometimes if you have 2-hour rehearsals, you can start right on time and go for 55 minutes, then take 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how many people need to use the bathroom, and then go until the end of the second hour, but you should not rehearse a full hour before your first break. If maybe you could even take 2 breaks. You work for 45 minutes, take 5 minutes, work for a half hour, 5 minutes again, and then finish the second hour, something like that. Shorter breaks, frequent breaks do the brain a lot of good, but people should not go like crazy suddenly during the break. Break is to take a bio break, to rehydrate, to all that. All right, and then having a run through after you've broken down an anthem into its many parts, and then you've solved everything. Running it through once is a great way to build confidence and to reveal new areas for improvement at the next rehearsal. So, and then after rehearsals, it's good to evaluate what went well, what could have been better, right? Just look back at your agenda and remember, what did we accomplish? Did that take too long? Did that become as good as I wanted to or not? Because that will help plan your next rehearsal, or maybe the warm-up on Sunday before the service, right? Areas to tackle first, and then that way you can adjust your plan, right? You can modify your next rehearsal agenda based on the progress that you achieved. And then I like to talk about self-care, and it's because no one else talks about it, but to me, rehearsals are draining. I don't know if those of you who direct choirs, you feel the same way, but rehearsals are draining. To the choristers, rehearsals are energizing. They usually leave, singing, humming a tune, whistling. They are obviously energized, right? And I'm drained. It took a lot of concentration. It took a lot of, focus to stay within the time to accomplish my goals, my to-dos, and everything. And it's just draining. And then oftentimes people want me to go out with them for like a celebratory, post-rehearsal drink, and or something. And sometimes I just feel tired, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip this week. I'm really tired, and it's okay. If you feel tired, take a moment, just sit there, take a breath, and have a sip of water, and maybe take it easy for the rest of the day or the rest of the night, right? And then practical applications for organists. So those of us who are leading from the console have the hardest job of all, really. And that's why I think it is important to prepare ahead of rehearsals, ahead of services, the cues that we're going to need to give with our head. If one of our hands can be spared, then use the hand, right? That's so effective, especially, but use your eyes, look at a section, hopefully they're in front of you, or they can see you easily. But when necessary, use clear, minimal gestures. You're already busy with your hands, so make sure that your head conveys what's important. The breath, the cue, the ictus. If there's a meter change, indicate that with your head. One. And then after that, just do the bouncing ball thing, right? Make sure if people start dragging or not keeping in time, just do the bouncing ball thing with your head, with your neck. Just up, down, right? So that your neck indicates the ictus. Your body language and head movements become all the more important, right? And so prioritize leading over perfect organ playing in these moments, of course. But because in all things, the sections need to come in at the right time, so eye contact comes in very handy, right? And looking straight at people like that. If your music needs to be very tall, that can unfortunately block visual access sometimes, depending on the layout of your sanctuary. So, maybe either reduce scores, or maybe have wider scores, or maybe have a sheet of a few pages, and then pull that sheet out, and frankly, just let it slide to the floor, so that the back sheet of your music is still there, but doesn't block eye contact with your singers, right? I've done that a lot. And then, since we became streamed, and sometimes the camera looks right at the organist, I had to do it the other way, so that the sheet would fall under where the camera looked, right? Necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? And then often it's more effective to lead from a separate piano at rehearsal, allowing you to face the choir. So if you practice at the organ in the sanctuary with the choir, but there are visibility issues. Then it's best to practice in a choir room where maybe you have a spinet or a grand piano and people can really see you, and then they learn really what cues to watch out for from you. Utilizing technology, I think I allow singers to record the rehearsals that I lead. My colleague Jennifer does not. She prefers not to do that because she's concerned about people focusing on the wrong thing and hearing things that don't succeed. But I'm okay with people recording rehearsals. They don't need to make a video recording of the rehearsal, but I think audio, maybe just the anthem, when we do the run through, then it's okay for them to record because then they can sing along to that while they're driving to work, driving to the grocery store, things like that. That it can be a powerful diagnostic tool for the choir and also for your conducting. So you might record your own rehearsal for your own benefit. Right? In the handout, I recommended some books and that really I think are well crafted and explain the motivation of conducting and why certain patterns work better and certain strategies work better. And then I also encourage you to check out some of the online tutorials. There are many excellent videos on basic conducting patterns and techniques on YouTube. Once you find a conductor that you like, maybe check out their tutorials and you can learn a lot from that. Also, local ACPA and AGO chapters are great resources for workshops and clinics. It's great to sign up for those. Members usually get one-on-one teaching from master conductors. And then it's great to observe other conductors, how they tackle pieces that you know, pieces that you yourself conduct, and to see the result that they get, the shaping that they produce. And I especially like personally attending rehearsals by other conductors, because that's when you see them work and you see what works, what doesn't work, and you being a fly on the wall is a great learning experience, right? And then of course performances that make you appreciate all the work that went behind these rehearsals. So yeah, are there any questions? No? Wow, that's great.
Million.
Excuse me?
A million.
Oh, a million. Let's start with one.
But it was so thorough that I can't even think of one.
Ah, well, thank you. Yeah, no, actually, these talks that I prepared for the conference were things that are important to me because I didn't learn a lot of them in school, and I had to continue my own education after school so that I was up to snuff for my jobs, And one of the lessons is that we need to keep learning, all of us, and no one knows everything. And there's more than one right way to do things, right? There's no right or wrong way. I mean, there are some ways that are better than others, and I think that's what we need to keep striving for, schools like this are wonderful, right? We learn so many essential skills, but there's so much more to learn, and we church musicians need to have so many of those skills. We need to be a conductor, we need to be a performer, we need to be a leader, we need to be, a therapist and a pastor sometimes. Exactly, right? There's so much that we need to be good at. So it's a lifelong pursuit, really, and we just have to keep learning.
I thought of something, but you already covered it. But I'd like to see it demonstrated, even if it's 2 seconds.
Yes.
That organ is probably not always with the little counter in a congregation or in a church, but it is facing that way right here.
Yes.
And you, like I said, you covered it very thoroughly, but could you play a very short, couple seconds and show conducting from without your face?
Sure.
Is that something that you would just absolutely change because it's of the necessity of the intimacy of communication? Or are there times where you just oh, well, I'm gonna have to do it this way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to play the organ, but to play what, for example?
In other words, say we were having a rehearsal
Okay.
in here, and you really wanted to focus on, you couldn't just turn the piano around, you really wanted to focus on some of the passages and the different things, and you wanted to play them.
Okay.
Well, do you say, oh, I know that room, the organ's facing the wall, can we do it here? Or do you say, well, I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to use every resource? Does that make sense, the question? Sometimes
I don't know. I'm not sure I grasped the question, but I know you're saying a lot of different things that are relevant. I know, but for a rehearsal, I would make sure that at least I can face the singers. So I would turn the piano around, absolutely, and I might even stand since this is an upright piano, because I think visual contact is essential. In fact, at St. Patrick's, when we have a choir rehearsal, we have a grand piano in that one room, and I stand at the piano. I don't sit, I stand. And sometimes, I have to, because the keyboard is fairly low when I stand, I'm 6'1", so I spread my legs and I unlock my knees, and I play like this, and then I will, make sure that I conduct a steady beat so that people don't drag. And then I look at people, especially a section that is late. I say, basses, you're dragging, and then sopranos, watch me, and things like that, right? Or the left hand, or or a piece that has a very involved accompaniment. I will play the accompaniment. I might drop a few things out, but I don't know if that answers your question. But
perfectly. Well addressed. Very well addressed. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the key is to be well rehearsed, and to get in your worship space, and you can't do some of the things you did at the rehearsal. It's more second nature as far as using your head or whatever.
Correct. Yeah, by the time you go into a sanctuary to execute, right, it needs to have been well rehearsed, and the choir needs to know what to expect, and they need to have experienced it in rehearsal, and they need to have their scores marked up. And you might preemptively, now since we use tablets, before we deploy all the scores, I draw eyeglasses in strategic places so that people see, oh, eyeglasses, and then they know that's the symbol for them to look up and really watch actively. But yes, exactly, you worded it perfectly. But yeah, no, for rehearsal, you must be able to face people. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for being here. My pleasure. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is Chandni's last event here at Baylor, right? Because you're about to get in your car and drive up to Michigan, University of Michigan, right? Today, right?
Yeah, after the service.
Wow, amazing. Oh, after the service, okay. Okay. Yeah, well, that's such an exciting journey that you're embarking on. I remember the day that I moved to go to a different university. You'll never forget it. That's great. All right, well, thank you all for being here and for your interest in this important skill set, right?